All right, so now we're going to move on to talking about the CEP population data and CEP worksheet. Okay, so this form, as you all know, has evolved over time. So some of you can think back to even before I was here, and you sent in a piece of paper with some numbers on it, and we did some calculations and sent it back, and you had to sign it. Remember some of that? Maybe. Kind of. You pushed that out of your brain by this point. And then we got to where it was online, but there wasn't really a good way for you to kind of play with the clusters, and it's just kind of was not as user friendly. So now this year we have a new updated system. It's had some hiccups kind of in the beginning, but I think in the long run you're going to see how this really is beneficial. So it's taken some time. I know in the beginning, when we first rolled it out, there were some glitches that required some. I had to call East Baton Rouge Parish and tell them that we accidentally deleted all their data. But I took responsibility and said I was sorry. But it took some time to get it right. And most of you are saying, well, it's locked. I can't get back in. What am I going to do? June 1st. So part of the reason why we locked it down is because in prior years we have gotten 10 plus revisions submitted for one district because they were playing with the forms and we're using it more as a calculator than an actual submission. So we were trying to find a way to kind of retrain everybody to use the calculator and then let that kind of really truly be a submission. So that was kind of the reason for locking it down. And like I told you earlier, I presented on it at State Update, and then I left there and got home, got back to the office, and the programmer had changed something else. I'm like, now you made me look like a liar. So I can't tell you how many times I told him that I looked like a liar because all I said was something that was totally different than what really happened. And so,
Is the calculator open?
Yes, the calculator's open. Yeah. The calculator will stay open. So this I've redone this presentation, I believe 3 times since State Update to get it to where it matches what's really happening. So hopefully I will not be a liar after today. So okay, so we're going to talk about the notification requirements and then the SFA annual reporting population data and CEP worksheet. So this is kind of where we spent a lot of time at State Update talking about it because it was coming up. Now it's happened. You've all made it through the form, but we're still getting a lot of calls about the form and it being locked. So hopefully this will answer a lot of your questions. So our notification requirements. So all state agencies and LEA notification requirements are met by the completion of the CEP population data and worksheet on the CMP website. So your notification must include the eligible districts, the nearly eligible districts, the currently participating districts, the district eligible for grace years, and then our responsibility is to notify all of you of your district-wide CEP eligibility, and you are going to let us know of your individual school level ISP, your CEP eligibility. So all this happens at one time. So we've tried to simplify it as it all taking place in that worksheet. So if you think back to how that worksheet looks, there's check boxes for eligible, and there's check boxes for nearly eligible. And then there's, at the bottom, you'll see your district-wide, CEP percentage, and you're putting in that data for your school and your enrollment and your identified student percentage. And it's calculating that ISP for the individual school. So all of these requirements are all met when you submit that form. It's the notification to you of your ISP for the district, and it's also your notification to us of all of your individual school level data. Okay, so there's a lot going on with this worksheet. And we hound you to get this worksheet in because we have to get it from you to turn around and give it to USDA on May 1st. So we get from April 15th to May 1st. And we were still calling people and getting these reports as of April 28th. We were still getting these. So we say this 15th deadline because it takes us 2 weeks to get the last few. And then we turn around and get that report to USDA. And we want that to be right, because anytime the reports are wrong and we submit them to USDA, that's another red flag. So then they might want to come back. So we want to get the reports accurate, right, and to them on time. So by May 1st, we have to publish the eligibility list on the state agency website, and then we send the link to USDA on May 1st. And this is their preliminary list. This is basically what they're looking for, is to see if there's schools that are kind of real close to being, eligible to participate, maybe haven't made that decision. And then it's kind of, it helps us say, okay, is this somewhere that we need to target? Is this somewhere that we need to call and say, hey, are you considering CEP? Have you looked at your numbers? So it kind of gives us an opportunity to see if you're kind of, on that borderline, but you haven't really made the decision. Is there something we can do to help you, possibly get that approved? So there's a lot going on with that submission, but USDA likes to know how the numbers are looking. And like I said, we do really well. And I was just explaining that there's a couple of reasons why in Louisiana it does well and it doesn't do as well in other states. So although we have some state laws that have hindered a lot of us, with certain aspects of this job, there are 2 laws that have protected us when it comes to CEP. So with the duty to furnish statute, requiring all public schools to have to serve breakfast and lunch, and to be CEP you have to serve breakfast and lunch. So all of you have been serving breakfast and yet lunch for since the beginning of time because of that. And then also we have not in this state allowed for money to be made off of paid student meals. So there are some states who charge an exorbitant amount to the paid students to supplement their income. And we, as a state, have a law that protects against that. So we look at the amount that it costs for you to create that meal and the amount you're getting from reimbursement, and then the maximum you can charge the student is the difference. So those 2 statutes, as well as, have actually made CEP more of a success here than in other states in the entire country. So even though sometimes we don't like all those state laws, there are a few that help us. Okay, so our identified student data is required from all SFAs by April 15th annually. So this has kind of started to evolve as well. So a lot of you remember when you first elected CEP, and the year after that you went into the worksheet, and if you were going to keep your same cluster, you didn't change any data and you just press save and you moved on. And now we're requiring that you put the data in. And so this is a process that's evolving over time by requirements coming from USDA, that annual requirement for you to check the data. Now they want to kind of have a checks and balances to make sure that it's being actually run on the local level. So it has to be reported to us. So, if you say that's different than what you said last time, you're probably right. And it's only because the requirements are changing. Every manual that comes out, there's something a little bit different than the one before. And typically, every one of them is giving more flexibility to the systems when it comes to a CEP. So your population data and initial CEP report, so all SFAs, even those are not participating in CEP or not applying for CEP, with the exception of traditional RCCIs, must submit identified student number and enrollment data by site. This is due annually to the state agency by April 15th, and then our online form, is what you use to submit that information. So we all know where to find it, right? So the one thing that hasn't changed is how to get to this form. So it's still when you log on to the website, Under school food services, you click on CEP Participation and then Worksheet. So that is still the same, even though once you click on Worksheet, it looks totally different. And probably if you clicked on it somewhere around April, mid-April, to when you checked on it again sometime in May, it looked different. So, but now we've got it to where it's kind of the way it's going to continue to look. All right, so once you click on CEP Participation, this is what it looks like, right? So this has evolved as well. So this, like I said, this is not what I trained on the last time, but this is what it looks like now. So the Home tab contains your CEP Participation for school year 16-17. So you see down at the bottom it says CEP Participation, has the school year 16-17, your revision number, status, and then you can click on View to view that. And it's going to bring you back to the report that you submitted last year, which is the one that you're used to seeing. It's going to take you that. So what we've had to do is merge basically the new system with the old system. So get all the old data into the new system. So this is how you're still able to access that. And then to access your 2018 CEP form, so that's the data that you would use in school year 17-18, you would click on CEP Elections. And then the CEP calculator, we'll talk about that. The CEP calculator is staying open, so you can use it when most, I've had some districts call that have me help with them. I go straight to this calculator. So I used to do it all by hand. Jen fusses at me because I still do a lot of my stuff by hand. But it just makes me feel better. But I do trust the calculator now so to help me with this, so it doesn't take me quite as long. Okay, so then once you open the tab, the CEP Elections 2018, it's going to bring you to this tab, and there's going to be more information here. Okay. The submission of 2 forms is required. So if we go to the CEP Elections, the 2018 tab, you'll be automatically directed to the Review tab. If your Review tab looks like this, it meant that you did not submit your data. So I know a lot of you would call and say, I'm not sure if it went through, but then you would see a big chart with all your schools listed and some other data there. And I would say, nope, you did submit. So the ones that didn't submit, this is what that Review tab looked like. So step 1 is the population data. So again, it's recommended that you use your online calculator tool to help determine your CEP clusters. Step 1, you're going to click on the population data to enter the identified students and the total enrolled students by site. Your identified students will be reported as the DC students and their siblings, students identified as homeless, runaway, or migrant, Head Start or Even Start, and foster students. So in previous, we had them, originally they were all linked into one. So it was DC, foster, migrant, all in one. That was the first year. And then the year after that, it moved to where we separated out. We had DC and their siblings, and then we had the other, right? And now we've got it broken down even more. And this all comes from, reporting requirements on USDA. So they're wanting these individual numbers. And so instead of trying to figure out where to get them, if we can get them on the front end, then the data is more consistent. So that's why we're trying to get you to kind of break them down for us when you submit this form. All identified student numbers and enrollment must be reflective of April 3rd, since April 1st fell on a Saturday this year. And prior year forms used to include all that information together. So now we're separating the identified students into different categories. So this is what the population data looks like. You're going to enter your identified student number and enrollment information. It was due by April 15th. The good news is they're all submitted. So by this point, if they weren't submitted, we'd be coming to your district to help you get that submitted. And then all fields were populated to 0. So if you remember previous year, we had all the information from the prior year. It populated over. And the reason why is because you could just continue to submit that if you were using it. Well, since that requirement came where we needed that data, we wanted to go ahead and 0 everything out. So then it automatically, kind of forced you to enter that new data in. So no population from prior year. So this took some getting used to, right? This is different. Every year we've kind of changed it a little bit. So I'm hoping that now we're getting to the point where we've evolved enough to where this, we're accomplishing all the goals that needed to be accomplished with this form. Okay, so you must enter the site level data and identified students, and then this page auto saves. So as the data was entered, you notice there was no save button. It automatically saved the data into the system, right? This is where we mess some people up. So somehow in the process, when we were tweaking some other things, somehow we cleared out some of the system's data. This was way back at the beginning. And so this is when I called and had to beg. So if I didn't call you and plead and tell you I was really, really sorry, then we did not delete your data. Okay, so once the information is correct, you certify that the information is correct and that you're going to use this data to participate in CEP, and then you're going to click the submit button. After the submission of the initial data, you'll be able to update this information starting on June 1. So, like I said, this was preliminary data. This is for that May 1st report is what this data was for. So now you've gone back through your list. Some of you may not have even used that last DC run when you put in these numbers because it came so close to the 15th. And that's okay. Like I said, this is preliminary. So now we're getting closer to that June 1st date where we're going to send a memo out and say, hey, you need to go back in, check your numbers, change them if needed, and then resubmit. So that's when we're really wanting you to take ownership in making the decision to elect CEP based on the numbers you've entered. What has happened previous years is we'll have submissions that have come in with changes in number, and maybe that percentage is slightly decreased from a prior year, and the system thinks they're running off of prior year data, but in our, the district does, but when we look at the system, what's in the CMP website, we're seeing something totally different. So what we're really taking is trying to get to where it's not just click, 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 that you're going through and actually making a decision that this is the data you want to use. Okay. So y'all don't realize that some of that happens on the back end, but we go through a lot of this, oh wait, no, that's not what my percentage was. I didn't mean to submit that. So we're trying to really get to where it's more of a, it's not so automatic, and that you really have to make the decision to submit those forms. And hopefully you'll get used to it. Okay, so this is what we talked about. If that March 31st DC run was not available by April 15th, so I think it came on April 12th. So for a lot of you, that probably fell near spring break or on spring break. It was just difficult, that you wanted to go through those lists. Even if you did download it into your system, you wanted to kind of look through it and make sure you didn't miss anything. That's all okay. So this is preliminary. So if if you got that form submitted, by this point, you probably have some updated numbers that you're ready to kind of go back in. You're waiting on us. You're every day you wait for June 1st to get here so you can just do it and get it out of your mind. And then a lot of you, have either gone to your board already and got approval, or you're about to go to your board and get approval for CEP. So, you may want to wait. Don't go there on June 1st. And put your information in. If you're meeting with your board on, June 10th, 11th, wait till that point and then submit your data so that you can get what's really going to happen. At that point, you're committing to kind of that decision. Okay. So if changes are made to the population data form, just the step 1, then you must resubmit the CEP worksheet. So step 1, step 2. So if you go back and change step 1, you have to change step 2. So you can't just change the population data and think that it's going to read over. You're going to have to click back through step 2, check the data again, and resubmit that one. Okay, once your population data is correct and submitted, you're ready to submit the CEP worksheet. So all your data entered into the population data form will populate to the CEP worksheet. So it should all be there. And you must submit that initial form by April 15th, which you all did. So this is what the CEP worksheet looks like. So there's a lot of numbers on here. And so some of you may have opened it and said, what are all these numbers? What's going on? So what we did is we tried to identify kind of your current CEP election, so what you're currently using in school year 16-17. So for this example, this is data from school year 16-17. So that's what that base year means. And then it's also what your numbers are looking like in school year 17-18 going into next school year. So you're able to see your ISP, and then this is kind of a chance for you to look at it and go, is it worth reestablishing? Do I want to go with my new numbers, or do I want to stay with the old numbers? So you're able to kind of look at them side by side. So hopefully that helped you a little bit more than kind of going back. And then also you can look on a site-by-site basis. You can say, okay, well, what's going on? If my numbers have changed, is there a certain school that's kind of having a lower number? So you're able to look at it a little bit more side by side to say, okay, it's particularly one school that I'm seeing a decrease in. What's been going on with that one school? So it just may help you analyze the data a little bit better. So, like I said, your base year is the first year of your four-year CEP cycle. So for some of you, that may say, like in this example, we've got 2015, we've got 2014. We don't have a whole lot that are going back that because, like I said, I make people reestablish. So we don't have a whole lot that are going back to 14 and 15. And then you also will see your 2018 data. If you choose to reestablish, the base year will be the date of reestablishment. So if you came on CEP back in the beginning, and then you reestablished in school year 15-16, then you're not going to have that first date. You're going to have that reestablishment date is what's going to show there. And then your 2017 table contains all your current information. So if you weren't participating, all the schools are going to say not participating. If you're seeing if you had clusters like this, it'll show however you were participating in school year 16-17. Okay, so then once you start messing with the data on the end, so all this information has been populated over, so you can't change any of the numbers. The only thing you can change is that last column, so where it has the not participating or the cluster 1, cluster 2. It's the only thing you can change. So if you select the exact same cluster as what you were doing in school year 16-17, you have two options. You can either renew your base year, so start over again with your new numbers, or you can continue with your current base year. So this is when you get to make that decision. Do I want to reestablish or do I not? So if we're just clicking, you might choose to reestablish when you didn't mean to. So this is what we're really wanting you to kind of slow down. Make sure that you're making a decision that you intend on making. Whereas up to this point, it's been kind of almost a mindless decision sometimes with reestablishing. And the good news, if any of you not sure if you missed some of this and you did it wrong with that submission for April 15th, between June 1st and June 30th is when you want to clean it up to be what you really want it to look like. So if you accidentally reestablished when you didn't want to, between June 1st and June 30th is when you want to go in and make sure that decision is the decision you're submitting then is what you really want to do. Okay, so if you select a different CEP cluster, so you'll see in my example from the first one, what they were participating in 16-17, they had two different clusters and one of the schools was not participating. In this revision, they go in and they change all the information to where all schools are going to be in cluster 1. What's different, what was previously selected, so you have no option but to start over, right? Because you can't continue the old base year because you're using a different cluster. So if you start changing your clusters, there's no option to continue with what you had. It's going to be grayed out. You're going to have to reestablish.
You mean the whole question?
Let's save all your questions. We're going to answer all of them. Okay, and so this button is the district-wide button. And so it's been very, very helpful for these systems that are really large. So this has been something that's been kind of asked for. Is there a way to make it to where we can, click on everything being the same so you don't have to go through each line. So we have the new district-wide button. So if you're electing CEP district-wide, you can select the district-wide button and they'll all be clustered together. if you have a big site, even if you're not planning on doing district-wide, a lot of times I'll go in and I'll click the district-wide button, and then I'll go and I'll individually remove the schools that are not going to participate and change them back to not participating, or change them to cluster 2, just because it may save you a little bit of time. So depending on how many schools you're looking at, it may be easier just to click that button and then go back and start deleting them out, the ones that are not going to participate. Okay, so the initial CEP election for population data in your CEP worksheet must be done by April 15th, and then the final submission will be done between June 1st and June 30th. And this is the final opportunity for you to confirm the CEP elections for school year 17-18. So, like I said previously, we had where that date was June 30th. It was extended to August 31st. So we had a lot of systems that were coming in, between June 30th and August 31st. And then we've had a handful that have come on even after the August 31st date, because the way that the policy was written is that it's at the discretion of the state agency. And we've allowed anybody to come on at any point as long as they're using their numbers as of April, or in this past year, data as of the flood, if you're one of those parishes. But that will not be the case in 17-18. So the decision you make between June 1st and June 30th, June 30th is going to be that deadline. You cannot make that decision July 1 or after. Even if you think you submitted the right data between April 1st and April 15th, you will still be required to go in between June 1st and June 30th to confirm that information. Once again, we want this to be more of a deliberate decision where you're going in and confirming, yes, this is what I want to do. So we want to kind of have that final confirmation so we don't end up, in July and August and wait, that's not what I meant to do. I didn't want those numbers. Those aren't my numbers. So, and you'd be amazed how many times we get that. So we want to make sure that it's correct. So we're really trying to make this very much a deliberate decision for CEP. So submitting the CEP worksheet. So you have your district-wide totals that are going to show up at the bottom of the page. And then when you start changing that information with the base year or the cluster, so you change it from not participating to cluster 1, cluster 2, then that section P2 comes up. And that's where you can either continue your current base year or renew your base year. And once you do that, you have to certify and submit that information. And I believe when you submit this, you got a little pop-up box that says data was submitted. And then it went away, and then all your data kind of cleared out, and you got a little nervous that maybe it didn't submit. Does that sound right? So that's when we went in, we looked at that review tab, and if the data was there, it said it was there. So like I said, there were some glitches. The amount of time that went into developing this worksheet was very extensive. I'm not a computer person, so I don't really know how involved this is, but from what I understand, this was quite an involved process to get it to look the way it does. So here we are. So this is what I said. We got to the review tab. So once you submit that CEP worksheet, after you did the population data, the data will populate to the review tab and you're able to see what you intended to submit. What is going to happen, and I believe it's already on the bottom of this one, is there's a box that says you certify this information is correct, and then do you want to submit it. And so right now that information's grayed out, but then come June 1st, you'll be able to actually go in and click that and submit it again. We're going to put a memo out. I'm trying to make sure that when the memo goes out, I don't lie to y'all again. So I want to know what it looks like before I write up the memo. Because I know y'all were probably just as frustrated as I was on your end, going, that's not what she said. That's not what this memo says. And trust me, every time it changed, I was saying, that's not what I told them. So I do understand the frustration, but it took some kind of getting into it to figure out what was going to work and what wasn't working. So hopefully we've ironed out all that. Okay, so between June 1st and June 30th, all SFAs must confirm and submit the CEP election. So like I said, even if you've submitted and you have no intention of electing CEP and you think you're done between June 1st and June 30th, you will have to go on and confirm that's the decision you want to make. We're going to send out a reminder memo, so look for that. So you should, hopefully all of you get blast emails saying, when a new memo is posted. If not, be looking for that memo or sign up for the blast. If this step is not completed, you will not be electing CEP for school year 17-18. And we won't let this date just slip by you. So we're not going to just sit back. I hope by this point you've realized that we hound you to get these things in. So we are not going to let June 30th slip by you without multiple phone calls and emails. And if you are still ignoring us at that point, then we're sorry. But we try really hard to almost be a pain when it comes to getting these things in. So I don't feel like that you're going to totally miss all this. We're gonna make sure that it is something is submitted. And if you choose to not answer our phone calls and emails, I can't come out and help all of you unless you call me and tell me you need me to come. Then I'll come. Okay, so this is what I said it was going to look like. So at the bottom of that review page, you're going to have a certify and submit button. It's already there. You just can't click there, and it says submission of this form will not be available until June 1st. So you should be able to open that now, and you see that. So June 1st, it's going to open up, and you'll be able to go in and click that information. You'll certify it's correct, and you'll submit. If it's not correct, so if that is not the information you want to use, you need to go back to the population data form, change it there, submit that form, do the same thing on the CEP worksheets. If you do step 1, you have to do step 2. So don't just change the population data, you have to change the CEP data as well. Okay, so if the data here is wrong, you call me and say, my data's wrong, I'm not sure where you got these numbers. It's because those are the information that you submitted on the form, so we want to go back and change them so that the information here is correct. Okay, so changes to population data. So since the CEP Participation Worksheet is populated from the population data, any changes in the population data will require a validation of the CEP worksheet. So you have to go back in and at least confirm that information that's populated over and submit it. So it should populate over, but if you submit just the population data and you've submitted information that's different on that CEP worksheet, the system's going to kind of break between there because it's not able to read the information over correctly. So what it's reading over is your previous submission. So step 1, step 2. So this is kind of our timeline. So I did a timeline like this for verification. I think the verification one was prettier, but I like timelines. I'm hoping it helps people figure out when things are due. So it kind of gives you an idea. So from April 1st or April 3rd to June 1st is when you can use the CEP calculator to make decisions for school year 17-18. So you can go in, start playing with things, talk to your board. Your initial CEP elections were done between April 1st and April 15th. That's when your population data and your CEP worksheet was submitted. We send our report to USDA on May 1st. June 1st, we're going to reopen the CEP website from June 1st to June 30th. And then your elections that you made between June 1st and June 30th will take effect on July 1 when the school year starts, and the CEP forms will be locked. Any revisions must go through the state agency. We've been told that they're going to be a little bit more controlled than previous. So up to this point, we've been at the state agency discretion for allowing revisions after that date, because that's the way the policy was written. But we've been told that is not how the policy is going to look for school year 17-18. So make sure your data is correct. So then the calculator feature. So has anybody been using this feature? Some? So I hope so, because it actually is very, very, very helpful. And that's the reason why we kind of went to creating calculator features, because a lot of people were using the actual CEP worksheet as a calculator. So once the numbers were entered in, you'd go in and kind of play with the numbers and figure out if certain clusters were better than others. And then would submit that information. So it wasn't ever intended to be the CEP data. It was meant to be kind of playing with the numbers, but yet it came through as a submission because the data was submitted. So we've tried to pull it apart so where you're able to play with the numbers, kind of come up with a game plan without actually submitting the worksheet to us. So this allows you to do whatever you want to do without affecting the CEP worksheet. So this has completely got done away with the accidental submissions and the fact that the form's locked. So it's kind of forced everybody into the calculator at this point, which was the way that it was intended. So it's working as we intended it to go. So it's just going to be getting used to the fact that it's going to have to reopen before you start changing the data. So this is just an example. So you'll see that it shows some colors for eligible when a site by itself is not eligible. Nearly eligible. So eligible is the 40% or greater. The not eligible is it's actually less than the 30%. So 30.00 to 39.99 is considered nearly eligible. Anybody below the 30.00 is going to be what's considered not eligible. And that's on a school basis. So if you look at this system and you say, oh, well, I can't do CEP at school B because it's not eligible. It can be eligible. We go back to what we talked about earlier about clustering it with other schools to make them eligible. So as a whole, if we take our entire system here, we've got 59.79% of an ISP, which gives you 95.66 district-wide. And then the other option, which is how we selected to do it, is to do two different clusters. Cluster 1 with 49.33, and then cluster 2 is above 100. So I've played with some numbers for a district, trying to make them system-wide and doing two clusters. And sometimes it works to where it's to your advantage. I think sometimes the hassle may be more than it's worth to have two separate clusters, but it just depends. So it's something to think about. So sometimes taking the same schools and dividing them up over two different clusters may actually bring in more reimbursement. So it's just something to look at. So then we're going to go over this again. When do you need to establish a new CEP year 1? So anytime there is a change in student population that impacts the identified students or the enrollment, the school or group of schools participating in CEP must recalculate the ISP. So we've gone over this a million times, right? So now by this point, we know that we have to reestablish if we have any change in the student population. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop with the CEP population worksheet. So I'm going to open it to questions.